Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Play Easy Warm-Up podcast. I am your host, Kerri Shields, and today I am excited to have a new guest for our intro, one of my co-founders, Ryan Quigley. Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kerri.
So, Ryan, could you give everyone just a little idea of what it is you do at Play Easy?
Yeah, so my role at Play Easy, I'm on the event organizer side, so any rights holder that comes onto Play Easy, any RFP you see posted, just basically finding and bringing those organizations onto the platform. So yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. Love it. I think sometimes people don't realize that we have a whole team that's focused on not only expanding our network on the event organizer side of things, but also just on the customer success, making sure that they're having the best experience on our platform. And I know you are a big advocate in us starting this podcast because you get to interact with these rights holders on a daily basis, and a lot of them have great stories to tell. And so what have been some of your big takeaways from our first few interviews that we've had on the Play Easy Warm-Up?
Oh man, so many. This podcast has been something that a lot of groups, are actively seeking, right? And there's not too many platforms for them to tell their story. From the past few episodes that you've had, I think like one thing that stands out is, when you work with the destination and get the support of the community or getting engaged with the community, it just adds so much to their events and is essential for them to be successful. So, and I think what a lot of what I do is we, hear what their needs are, but a lot of times they struggle to communicate everything that they do in an RFP. So, by speaking with you and being able to tell, everything that their events can bring, I think is a cool thing. So, excited for many more ahead. Excited for the one today with AJGA. They've been on our network for quite a while, and I think just knowing those guys, they do a ton for the communities where their events are hosted. So excited to hear this one.
Awesome. And I know we had some big news as a company this week announcing that we are going to be hosting our first ever Play Easy Innovators Summit next July in Valley Forge, PA. Do you want to comment on that? Share a little bit of our excitement in hosting our first summit?
Yeah, nervous, excited, a little bit of everything. We've been going to conferences for 6 years, and this is where we started Play Easy, right? And the power of bringing people together in person is there's no matter how good the technology is you can't beat it. So excited to bring people on our network on, new people to Valley Forge, and obviously we'll have our own little niche to it, so it'll be exciting.
Great. And I think just to make a few comments on it, I know this is something that we've been working on for a while. I think since we've started Play Easy, there is so much that our platform can do that will never be able to be covered in an hour or 2-hour demo. And so I'm just excited to be able to have a lot of our partners and power users just to be able to talk technology and innovation for 2 days in Valley Forge. I know we're both living in the Valley Forge area, so I'm also excited to show off and work with the Valley Forge team in making the event successful. And so if anyone is interested that's listening, please reach out. You could reach out at support@playeasy.com or reach out to Ryan personally, rquigley at playeasy.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll continue to provide updates and exciting things to come. So to jump into today's conversation, we were fortunate enough to have Patrick and Hanna from the American Junior Golf Association. I had the opportunity to see them last week at the 4S Summit, and I just was so impressed by all that they do for the game of golf, and thought that they would be just two great people to have on. What were some of your big takeaways from this conversation?
Um, well, one is they tend to get a lot of celebrities that come to their events, so I may need to find some nearby. But that was pretty cool to hear some of the names that would stop by. But then also, I mean, I mentioned it, the behind the scenes, the mission, when they do partner with the destination, it's usually for 10 plus years, right? They're coming to make a home. So, and the cool thing, they're actively looking for new location. Like anytime they can have a conversation with a destination, that they're open to it and they want to have those. I think everybody that's listening to this podcast on the destination side knows Patrick and knows he's at all the conferences. He's great guy to work with. And Hannah, kind of new to the team over there, but her story is awesome on how she got into her role there, and she's been a huge asset for them and awesome to work with as well. So yeah, it's the best part about the podcast. It's just hearing, from the rights holder how great it is when both sides are working together and really benefiting each other. And that's what sports tourism is, right? Everybody wins. Everybody brings each other up. So yeah, it's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought it'd be helpful just to give a little bit of a summary of who the American Junior Golf Association is for people who do not know. So AJGA is a 501c3 nonprofit association dedicated to the overall growth of young men and women who aspire to earn college golf scholarships. With over 10,000 members ages 12 to 19 from 50 states and 60 foreign countries, the AJGA will conduct over 250 championships this year from January to December. Each year, AJGA seniors secure more than $26 million in athletic and academic scholarships from participating in the AJGA. Through initiatives like the Liberty National Achieving Competitive Excellence Grant, the ACE grant that you'll hear a lot about in this episode, a financial assistance program, and Leadership Links, a service-oriented platform that teaches juniors charitable giving skills, the AJGA fosters the growth of golf's next generation. I loved this conversation, and as you mentioned, Ryan, Patrick and Hannah are such a pleasure to work with, and I think we both learned a lot, and I hope you all will too. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us, and I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Kerri.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Plazy Warm-Up. I am so excited to have Patrick Cansfield and Hanna Collins here with us today from the American Junior Golf Association. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I know I had the pleasure of spending some time with you guys last week at the 4S Summit in Chattanooga. How was your first experience at 4S?
Yeah, I personally was super impressed. I thought they had a great lineup of topics. That was the first time that we had ever really gotten to sit in a room with other rights holders and just like bounce ideas off of each other, learn tips and tricks from each other. Even though they don't all obviously work in golf, it's still pretty applicable. And then it's nice to hear some of the education topics for the DMOs and the CVBs as well, and kind of get to hear what they're learning on the other side and maybe apply that to our side as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, no,
Patrick,
totally.
how about you?
Yeah, totally agree on what she said. I mean, John David's done a great job kind of bringing some excitement to that conference. A lot of great keynote speakers. Was super impressed. Jerry Caldwell, I believe, from Bristol Motor Speedways, just kind of talking about what they do with their venue outside of NASCAR and how they're able to kind of adapt to what's going on around them, whether it be with the hurricane relief efforts, or even what they talked about with bringing the baseball game next year to the NASCAR stadium, which I thought was pretty unique with the Atlanta Braves and I think the Cincinnati Reds. So that was super neat to hear kind of from other venues of what's going on and sports tourism as a whole. And really enjoyed, as Hannah mentioned, kind of learning some best practices on the events right holder side, and seeing what we can take back and improve here for 2025.
Yeah, love it. I know it's always interesting. Those are some of my favorite conferences where we're able just to talk and communicate, network, and learn from each other. I know we're asked all the time from both sides best practices or ways to go about having the conversations between the right holders and destinations. So it's great just to be able to have dedicated time to learn from all of our peers. And obviously always great spending time with you guys in person. So just to get started, could you guys both give a little bit of your background and how you got involved with AJGA?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I had actually always wanted to work in sports, but never really knew what sport I was interested in. And then my sophomore year of college was 2020. So COVID hits. I get sent home second semester and I'm like, still no idea what I'm going to do. I'm so bored. There's nothing going on. And then all of a sudden, like golf is kind of picking back up. It's kind of the first sport to really start coming back to life during the pandemic. And so I just thought it was super interesting that while everything else had shut down, that had kind of kept going. So whenever I was home, just quarantining with my parents, decided golf was my sport of choice. And kind of popped around to some different ideas and internships and asked my local country club about the AJGA. They're like, oh yeah, that's legit. It's the thing. That's where you want to go to work. So applied for the internship, did it summer between my junior and senior year of college, and then got hired my senior year, started in May of 2022, about 3 days after college graduation. And the rest is history. So started as a tournament director, done a couple different things, and now work in development with Patrick.
Awesome. Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, so kind of a unique path, actually. So I grew up playing AJGA events, so absolutely loved them as a kid. My best memories traveling around with my parents and mainly my grandpa, actually. So looking back on all the amateur events I played in, even college golf, I mean, those were my best memories. And I'm actually heading to a wedding here this next weekend with one of my buddies from Kansas, and we actually met through AJGA. So just kind of shows you how long that can go. But yeah, I ended up going to college, and I was actually heading down the financial path, into the financial services industry. And my college coach was the one that recommended the AJGA internship opportunity to me. And so I ended up applying, and at the time I was living in Orlando, Florida, still playing a little bit of golf. And they're like, hey, can you come in 2 weeks? And I'm like, I guess I can. So I ended up traveling down, and that was back in 2016. And I've been with the AJGA ever since. So absolutely love the culture and everything that the AJGA stands for.
That's great. It's so funny how you said just growing up playing the sport and how much it's still involved, and some of your best memories. Actually, when I was on the way to Chattanooga last week, my flight attendant was a girl I played AU basketball with for 8 years of growing up, and we spoke so fondly of that time together. And it was just funny. I was explaining sports tourism. I'm like, we were active participants in sports tourism when we were playing basketball. And that's what we do now. But so also when we were prepping for this conversation, my background is in basketball. And so when I was trying to figure out how to best communicate what is AJGA, you would say it's very comparable to an AAU for basketball when we were growing up. Could you give a little bit more context as to who you are as an organization, what your mission is, and what you guys do as an organization?
Yeah. I mean, to start off, the AJGA is actually a 501c3 nonprofit. So our main mission is to help junior golfers achieve college golf scholarships and also to help develop them as young men and women along the way. So one way that we do that is we obviously run junior golf tournaments. So founded back in about 1978, just running a handful of events. And now in 2024, we're going to run about 145 tournaments by the time it's all said and done, all across the country, even in a couple other countries as well. So we're international too, which is pretty neat. But outside of the association, we also have our foundation arm in the Liberty National ACE Grant, which is another way that that we're making golf more accessible to those players and allowing them to have more opportunities to go play. So that's a reimbursement program for players who maybe would typically not have the means to play college golf, but have the skill to do so. So they're able to apply for reimbursement, not just for AJGA events, but also for USGA, state juniors, other organizations outside of our own. So really doing what we can to allow them to have more opportunities to play and get more looks from those college coaches and then go on to achieve their dreams of playing college golf.
Love it. And we'll definitely touch back on just that side of things when it comes to what you do as an organization. But Patrick, could you tell us a little bit about the landscape of junior golf today and the types of players that you've had? From someone who's pretty new to golf, I recognized a lot of names that you have of past athletes. So could you just explain a little bit about the landscape today?
Yeah, no, it's incredible where the AJGA has gone, since, inception back in 1978. We had 4 events back in the day, and players would actually send in resumes to earn spots in our tournaments back in the early days. And we've kind of adapted and grown to where we have an actual performance-based ranking system nowadays where, depending on how they play, not only in our events, but we also recognize about 1,000 independent junior golf events across the country. And so based on their performance in those events and our events, that is how they get status to be able to get into our tournament. So, when you look at, the likes of, at the top of the game, Scotty Scheffler and Jordan Spieth and obviously Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, and even on the ladies' side, Nelly Korda, Jessica Korda, Lexi Thompson. All of them were stars when they were, 15 to 18 years old with the AJGA. So it was pretty cool this year. I mean, we had 2 events with Charlie Woods that he attended and played in, and Tiger was on site, which was super cool. There was even an event we had Trevor Immelman, who's a past Masters champion, and his son plays with us. And so those 2 were actually paired together, the Immelman and Woods pairing, which is pretty unique. I think it's probably the only time we've ever had 3 Masters champions involved in one AJGA event. So Adam Scott was actually the title sponsor of the tournament, and then had Trevor and Tiger on site, kind of supporting Adam in his efforts, giving back to the game. So really cool. I mean, this past year was super exciting with the Junior President's Cup and Junior Solheim Cup. We run those both in conjunction with the PGA and LPGA Tour. So there's a direct tie-in between the 2 tours there. A lot of different opportunities that we're creating. Last week on the PGA Tour, the Butterfield Bermuda Championship, our Rolex Player of the Year on the boys' side actually earned an exemption into that tournament. So Miles Russell won the tournament, or won the Rolex Player of the Year last year and played in the tournament this year, which was awesome to see. And Blades Brown, he played earlier this year at Myrtle Beach. Made the cut, finished 26th. Gianna Clemente on the female side, who's our top junior right now. She's made a couple cuts out on the LPGA. So really exciting kind of what you're seeing as far as, how these kids are performing at the junior level, amateur level, and then, eventually the professional level.
That's amazing. And I'm shocked I knew most of those names that you just said, but it just shows just how great of what you do as an organization. And so you said over 140 events this past year. What do you look for in terms of a host city and golf course to host your events?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, across the board, I'll let Hanna chime in here, but it definitely varies across the board. There's really 3 big things that we look for. Number 1 being a golf course. So we're always trying to start at the top with maybe the best facility in the area. But we're not necessarily, married to private facilities or public places, parks and recs, what have you. We host at numerous different facilities across the board. So it really just depends, what the community has to offer. And then from there, we can kind of work backwards if it makes sense for our overall schedule. The date conversation is obviously the hardest part with us having over 140 events. 90-ish% are repeat events. Our longest standing event has been around for over 40 years in Ashland, Kentucky. So typically when an event comes to the area, it's not going away, too soon. So really the golf course is the biggest, hurdle on the front end. Hanna, do you want to kind of touch on, committees and sponsorship?
Yeah. One of the other 3 things that we look for is a local committee is what we call it. And so obviously we're based just outside of Atlanta and we're running over 140 events. So need some help out there in the community in terms like leading up to the event. So they help us secure volunteers, maybe get a host hotel for our staff and the players, maybe some donated meals or rental car, things such as that, just because we obviously can't be boots on the ground up until about 10 days before the event. But once we get there, we're totally turnkey, just need a little bit of assistance leading up to the event. And so that committee can be made up of anything from AJGA parents to golf course staff sometimes want to get involved. Sometimes those CVBs really like to be involved and help us do that as well. But again, kind of what Patrick said, similarly to the golf course, it's really whatever makes the most sense for the committee or for the local community in terms of who's involved and kind of helping us secure all of those items. Then the last thing that we look for, being a nonprofit organization, we do request funding whenever we come to a new site. So each of our events actually gives back to charity themselves. So if we have what's called net proceeds at the end of an event, half of it will go back to the AJGA Foundation and that Liberty National ACE grant we talked about, and then half of it can go back to a local charity of choice as well, if there's one in the community that people are super passionate about.
That's incredible. Could you give an example of a partnership you have? I know you were recently in Puerto Rico with our partners at Discover Puerto Rico. Could you just give an example of some great partnerships that you've had and maybe ways that they've implemented or at least supported those local committees?
Yeah, I mean, across the board, we're obviously working with, it's really, we start with CVBs when we bring an event to the area. They know their market better than we do, with us being headquartered just outside of Atlanta. And we're in 140 different destinations pretty much outside of Atlanta. We really need those local figures to kind of point us in the right direction. So Discover Puerto Rico has been a fantastic partner. Carlos and his team do a great job. We actually work directly with the Puerto Rico Golf Association as well. And luckily with that event, they also host their own PGA Tour event there in Puerto Rico. And so we host at the same host facility that they host at. So there's a lot of tie-ins there, and it really makes our life a lot easier. And obviously it's a great experience for families to be able to come down. One of our families was down there for 2 weeks prior to the event this year, right after the holidays. So, they usually turn it into a family vacation at, some of those spots. But yeah, I mean, early in the year, we definitely look internationally just because of the weather. But kind of spring and summer are really the main focus of our events. We'll have 4 events in the spring per week, and then 7 events in the week per week in the summer. Another great partner, Anthony Turling and his folks over in Auburn, Opelika. Travis, I know he was a former AJGA intern and now working in the sports tourism world, which is pretty cool. So we always love going to, host cities that have, a college campus there on site, because that's a direct tie-in with our mission. And obviously the college coaches, it makes it a lot easier for them to come out and recruit when we're on site, and the kids can really turn it into an unofficial visit where they can see the facilities, see if it's a good fit for them. Parents are comfortable, what have you. And if they, have the game and the coach has a spot, you never know what it'll turn into. So, but yeah, Hanna, I know you've worked with a ton of different destinations. Any other partnerships you want to highlight on your side?
I have kind of a funny story. I actually, before this position, was the regional manager over the South Central. And so was pretty new to like the CVBs and what they are. And Sam Moore with Visit Lake Charles actually reached out to me about an event. And so I had never had like a CVB actually like basically cold reach out to us wanting to host. And it was awesome. The event actually came onto our schedule in 2024. And is going to come back in 2025, and I think double in size and become one of our biggest events over Easter. So pretty neat story that they'd heard about us and were so interested that they just went ahead and reached out, had all the necessary pieces pretty much in place already, and got on our schedule first try and are now here to stay.
That's amazing. We love great examples, especially with our partners at Lake Charles. And so could you touch a little bit more on that? I know I've seen your RFPs come through the PlayZ platform, but is there more opportunity outside of the set events that you already have on your schedule? Is there opportunities to grow elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, Kerri, we're always open to the conversation. And I think what we've seen over the years is, let's say we start a conversation, November of 2024, our schedule's pretty much set for 2025. So probably not an opportunity necessarily for next year. However, you never know where that's going to, end up and could turn into an event in 2026 or 2027. I think a good example, Stan Adams, actually. So he worked with Tuscaloosa Sports and Robbins and his team kind of taken over. But when he was there, he was really the one that spearheaded getting an event off the ground with the AJGA. And that was about 3 years that we had been, working on an event, and kind of the stars finally aligned. It was really cool. I mean, the first year that we had it, Nick Saban was on site. He was actually playing during the event, which was pretty unique. And then he moves over to Missouri, and you never know, what could lead to something, down the road, in his new destination or location. So the biggest thing on our side is just always, keeping the lines of communication open. And from our perspective, it's, what is a good fit for the destination, and, how can we make that work? We talked about the big three, and, some places have the big three ready to go. Other places might only have a golf course, and they're looking for, help with sponsorship and committee. And as long as Hanna and I know that, we can go back and work with our regional team to try to, problem solve and find, the key playmakers, really make these things happen. Sometimes we'll have, a Fortune 500 company that's interested in a certain state, and wants us to go find, a golf course and a committee to really make the event possible. And so if we do have a partner that we know and we trust, then we can go back to them and say, hey, would, Tuscaloosa work, or, wherever it might be, and try to get an event off the ground like that. So at the end of the day, these events, they all happen, in different shapes and forms, but we love just having the conversations and seeing where that goes.
And that was something Ryan Quigley on our team, who works with event organizers, something he hears a lot is destinations can be fearful in their relationship with their golf courses. Some might not know how to approach the golf courses in their area. Do you guys have any pieces of advice for how to approach that relationship, or maybe bridge the gap to build those partnerships?
Definitely. Hanna, you want to touch on that from your perspective?
I mean, I don't think it's so funny to me. I don't think they need to be scared by any means. I do think that Patrick and I do the best that we can to let them know that we're happy to be a part of any conversations that they want us to be a part of, just because I think part of it is probably that they're worried that they won't have the answer to all the questions. And so we do our best to provide all the information that we can to properly equip them for those conversations. But, I think the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say they're not interested in hosting an outside event, and we're not going to be mad if that's the answer. So I think that's important for them to know too, that even if they do get a no, that's okay. A no is still an answer. And we'd rather have an answer than be in this awkward waiting game, for sure.
Yeah, and I'd say along those same lines, I mean, we're happy to initiate those conversations too. So if maybe they, know that there's an appetite for golf events in their area, but maybe they're not plugged in with, the local country club, or they don't have a tie-in, with the Parks and Recs course potentially. Maybe there's, new ownership or a new head pro and they haven't met them. We're happy to, pick up the phone or make a visit and sit down and really chat through it, with the different host facilities. And typically when we're, able to be a part of those conversations and on the line, we can actually probably answer all the questions at one time, as opposed to kind of going back and forth, where some of this, the process can take a little bit longer. So from our perspective, we'd love to, help be a part of those conversations and, definitely introduce them to the context that we might have as well. Because, they're the ones that are in the town for, 365 days a year, whereas, we're in town for 7 days. Right. However we can help, on that side too. I mean, our AJGA parents were, extremely lucky that a lot of them are typically community leaders, kind of in the areas that, we go to. And so if we know that a destination's interested, that gives us, more support that we need to get an event off the ground. And then we can kind of work backwards from there of, where are you guys at with the golf course? And maybe they're like, oh, we don't really have one. Perfect. Now that we know that, is it okay if we reach out, or would you like to be a part of this conversation and kind of handle it like that? So, from our end, there's a lot to gain from just having that conversation with the CVB and Sports Commission. And at the end of the day, seeing how Hanna and I can work with them to bring an AJGA event to the area.
I know a lot of our destination partners will be happy to hear that. But so let's change gears a bit. I want to talk about more of the program impact. I think something that really stands out about your organization is how much you guys do for not only the community, but your players involved in your membership program. Could you talk a little bit about how you support young athletes beyond their performance just on the golf course?
Yeah, so a big part of the AJGA, is developing these kids on the golf course, which we're doing, through competitive junior golf events and providing them with that exposure through NCAA, college coaches being on site and recruiting. But the other facet, of what we do is developing them, off the golf course. So simple things as, at the end of a tournament, players come in, we sign scorecards. And we actually have them write handwritten thank you notes to those key players that made the events possible. So whether that be the head pro, that came in every day at 5:30 a.m. to open up the pro shop, let the parents in to, purchase their spectator carts or answer questions, make sure the coffee's on, what have you. To the superintendent that, helps cut the holes every day and, make the course, in fantastic condition, for our events, all the way up to, CBBs and sports commissions that, really help, welcome folks to the area. Our sponsors that without them, we wouldn't have that, charitable arm and the opportunity to, give back to the kids and really provide that exposure for them to play at the national level that they might not otherwise have. So, thank you notes is one of those ways that, we help developing them off the golf course. We also have our Care for the Course program. And I think a bigger, focus of that is really instilling in these kids at a young age that we're trying to leave the golf course in as good, if not better condition than where we found it. And so to do that, we provide each kid with a sand bottle at the beginning of an event. We have sand receptacles on each tee that they can, fill up their sand and use that on the golf course to, replace their divots, fix their ball marks, and we even go as far as to provide them with a one-stroke penalty if they don't do that. So we provide them with a warning first, and once they don't learn from the warning, then they actually earn a one-stroke penalty. And typically the kids don't like to see that on their scorecard, or the parents definitely don't. So, that's something else that we do. Our pace of play program is instrumental in kind of what we do. When we align these events, on the front end, right, we're providing the golf course, we're letting them know that, hey, you're going to have the golf course back in the afternoon. But the only, reason that we're able to provide that and deliver on that promise is because of our pace of play program. And so last year in 2023, our overall average across the board was 4 hours and 23 minutes for competitive junior golf, which is fantastic when you go to your local charity scramble that you're out on the golf course for 6 hours and, everybody's just out there for forever. Right. But because of that pace of play program, and, the staff, and everybody else, we're able to give that course back, to the members and guests, in the afternoon. So, those are just a few things. Anna, do you want to touch on leadership links too and kind of what we're doing on that side?
Yeah, for sure. Our Leadership Links program it's a program that allows kids to make an impact in their local community as well. And so what they can do is they can sign up for the program and they select a charity of their choice. They track their volunteer hours. We help provide incentives along the way. So not only are they volunteering, but they're also trying to raise money along the way. So since its inception, I believe we've done about 50,000 hours, and then they've raised a good bit of money as well. So we have somebody in our foundation team that's like cheering them on, giving them little prizes once they hit certain benchmarks, things such as that. So it's teaching them to give back to their local community, and not just, go out and play golf, but also to make a difference for those around them.
Yeah, that's a great description there. And another thing, Kerri, our State Cup series of events. So we call it our Cobra Puma State Cup series. So they're individual fundraising events where say one player from, Atlanta, Georgia, wants to establish, his own State Cup series of events. He can bring it to any course of his choice. Typically, they're, high-end facilities in the areas that we go to. But really the main mission there is to bring their friends in, and we kind of create like a Ryder Cup style format. They're only one-day events, but the overall goal is all these kids can get together, kind of take care of the fundraising on the front end of the event, and then come out and celebrate together, during these events, which, turns into something really special. And I think it was one of our events in North Carolina this year. It was actually started by Jackson Van Paris, who plays at Vanderbilt now, one of the top players in college golf. But That event, raised over $300,000 this year for charity, and that was all by the kids, right? So
It's crazy.
they're the ones doing the fundraising themselves, and we're providing them with the platform to go out and do that with the website and all the materials that they might need, but they're the ones that are actually making the ask. And once again, the whole goal is, we know not all these kids are going to be professional golfers, but at some point, these are the best and brightest in their community, and they are going to be leaders. And so kind of having them have those tough conversations, or, make a significant ask, at a board meeting, in front of parents, friends, what have you. That's really what it's, all about. So, a lot of cool stuff on that side. And, we could talk for hours about some of the success on that side.
That's incredible. And I think to even just bringing transparency and understanding to what goes into playing and hosting the events that kids are taking place. I know I didn't even know CVBs existed when I was playing. And so just, to show appreciation for the people involved in making the sport happen and continue to grow, I think it's amazing. We work with a lot of grassroots organizations that I know would love to figure out ideas to be more impactful with the events that they have and their members. How do you guys go about the execution of these types of initiatives?
Yeah, so we work with some different organizations on that side too. So we annually are supporting about 100 local charities through our events. And so really it's getting the message out there, of what we're bringing to town and what the event is doing for charities in the community, and who it's going to benefit. Good example on our side, we actually have a partnership with the First Tee program, and so that's kind of a grassroots program that's set up for kids that maybe don't have clubs or access to facilities or anything like that on the front end. And so the way that we partner with them, we have a day in the life program. And so the First Tee chapter kids can come out to our events and actually see behind the scenes what it takes to run a junior golf tournament. And so they'll shadow our staff right around in the golf cart, help us with hole locations early on in the week, see all the administrative stuff that goes on, whether that's filling the field. We'll go through, kind of our tournament budgets with them to show, how important that is. Going through BEOs, on site with, restaurants and the different partners that we have that are, really helping with the event. So those are some of the ways that, we work with grassroots organizations. And Hannah, do you have any good examples kind of on your side of partnerships that you've had that have been successful on that side of things?
Yeah, I think it's a really neat, it's a really great question. I think something neat that we do sometimes, I've unfortunately not seen this at one of my events personally, but if we've made a really big impact in a community, we sometimes will bring the giant check and present it to the charity on site at the tournaments, which is just such a good way to, maybe bring out like the owner of the golf club, or sometimes even the city mayor, or like the director of the CVB. Like, they get to come out and be a part of that big, almost like press release moment, and allow us to not only tell our story, but also get to tell the story of that local charity in the community.
That's great. And I know, Hannah, you touched on this earlier, but your internship program is big when it comes to, anyone who wants to be involved in the sport of golf. It's a great starting point. Could you talk a little bit about that program and your experience?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a spring internship and a summer. So the spring is, about 8 weeks, runs from about mid-March to mid-May, and have about 70 interns then. And then in the summer, you come and you go on the road for like 16 weeks. So it starts around Memorial Day and ends in Labor Day. So you're on an intern team with about 8 or 9 other people, come to headquarters for training, and then you drive in the AJGA trucks and pull a trailer all summer long from going from golf course to golf course. And I don't know that there's another internship that gives you as much responsibility as ours does. They really allow you to take ownership of each event, to rules officiate. You get to interact with parents, build your network, travel and see the country, and obviously like make lifelong friends along the way. So I think it's a very hands-on internship, which you don't always get. and we have over, I think, 120 interns each summer. And in 2023, we went to more college career fairs than we did ever. So obviously are doing what we can to get our brand out there and to recruit more people to not only play the game of golf, but now to work in the game of golf, which is another way that we're working to grow it as well.
Yeah, another thing
So-
too, I mean, we always kind of say that the internship program is kind of the backbone of the AJGA, because when you look at it, right, we have about 120 interns annually that help us run our tournaments. But, not all of them are going to get, hired full time, but that's not necessarily the purpose of, why they're doing the internship either. But it's a great feeder platform to whatever, their dream job might be in sports, or at least get them kind of in the door. So even when you look at kind of our full-time staff here at the AJGA, we have about 50 current staff members that are now at the PGA Tour. So alumni that work full-time at the AJGA and are now at the PGA Tour. The year that I started, we lost, I say lost, but I guess the USGA gained 8 AJGA employees, right? So they hired away 8 folks from the AJGA the year that I came in, which was crazy to see. And I was kind of like, what am I getting myself into? But the longer that I've been around, right, the more I understand that it really is kind of a training organization. And Stephen Hamblin and kind of our leadership team, that's really a goal of theirs, is to help them, kind of get to where they want to be. One of the interns that was kind of in my class, she's now working in the NFL side of things, kind of on the scouting side. So you just never really know. And Hannah and I, we joke all the time, just from the standpoint of the sports tourism world. One of our buddies, Adam Young, he's now working with Lee and her team over at the Gwinnett CVB Sports Commission here in Atlanta. So once again, and Travis, like I said earlier, he's in Auburn. You really just never know kind of where their path's going to lead. But I do know that the AJGA, is definitely a great starting place and can take you kind of where you want to go.
And you guys have a great video that portrays just the opportunity of your internship program on your website. And so I highly encourage anyone who's interested or has family members that would be interested to check out that video. I think as someone who had no idea what they wanted to do as a career path, but knew I wanted to be in sports, I think there's no better way to show what goes into event management and being a part of a big brand as your internship program.
Yeah, I'd say one other thing too on that, Kerri, is that, too, if, folks in the sports tourism world are ever, looking for kind of entry level positions, or perhaps even an internship, we actually have a careers page here at the AJGA that we share opportunities with our internship program kids as well as full-time staff. And so that can be a way that, we could help, other destinations, organizations, from a recruiting standpoint, just because it is a pretty lengthy process to bring somebody on board. And so, it's a heavy, vetting process that we do. So if they kind of get to the stage where they're a part of that careers page, they're usually probably a pretty good fit for other organizations down the road.
That's awesome. And we'll definitely add those links to this episode so people can learn more on that. And so as the sport of golf is growing, we've seen it. I feel like I'm either watching or my friends are playing and getting more involved. A big part of it is accessibility of the sport from a young age. And I know you guys, that is a ton of the work that you guys are doing, is making the sport of golf more accessible. And so what steps is the AJGA taking to make golf more accessible and inclusive for young players?
I think the biggest thing that we're doing right now is we're currently in year 3 of a 5-year program to reduce all of our membership fees by over $5 million. So we've been lowering our fees since 2010. So that's like to join the AJGA in general, it's tournament fees, it's qualifier fees, everything such as that. So it's actually cheaper now to play in the AJGA back when it was whenever we started lowering our fees, which is it's pretty crazy because a lot of other organizations are basically doing the opposite. So obviously trying to make it more affordable to people so that they can go in and have more opportunities to play.
Yeah, that's a great point. kind of on the accessibility front, we're always looking to, try to bring events to areas that we maybe don't have a presence in. I think a good example there, so we have a partnership with the United States Golf Association to help them identify players for the U.S. national developmental team. And a part of that is, bringing events to areas that we don't have them. For instance, like Fargo, North Dakota. Tom Hoagie grew up there. He's kind of a unique scenario, plays on the PGA Tour now, but didn't necessarily have the access, to events as a kid, from the standpoint of, there were no AJGA events around. And so it's a little bit harder to get recognized by top programs if the kids don't have that access. And so that's one barrier that we're trying to, break down and really improve on is, bringing events to states that maybe are underrepresented. A great partnership, Sports Salt Lake has really helped us do that. We did not have an event in Utah for many, many years. And they were the ones that, came to us and were like, hey, we'd love to help you do this. What does it look like? And working with, Evan and Clay and Karen and that whole team, has been so fun. And it's been really fun for Hanna and I just to see the parents' remarks of, hey, thank you so much for, bringing an event, closer to us. And then along the same lines, the folks from California that maybe can't get into an event in their state, but now there's, one in Utah they can, travel to and get into. So you just never know. I met a parent from Vancouver, Canada, the year that I was up there, and he was just so, thankful for it. He's like, this is, one of the closest events that we've been able to play in, and he's coming from Vancouver, right? So still a long ways to travel, but it was very helpful for, his child's progression and opportunities that they were looking for. So I think that's, one way, that we're trying to do that. And, that kind of leads into actually our International Pathway series a little bit too. That's another way that we're trying to make the game a little bit more accessible to kids from, the international regions. So individual countries can actually host their own AJGA events, and they're mainly focused for kids of that country to play in. However, if the kids play well, that will earn them status to get into AJGA events here in the U.S., where prior to COVID, there was no direct bridge or link from, let's say China to the U.S. And so kids would actually have to come over to the U.S. We would see kids come over for about a month and a half, and they'd play 5 events in a row. But there was no guarantee of them actually getting into an AJGA event. They would play in what we call our AJGA qualifiers, which are 18-hole events, very similar to Monday qualifiers out on the PGA or LPGA tour. And if they would play well enough, finish, roughly in the top 10%, they would earn their way into the tournament that would take place kind of the next 4 days. However, if they didn't play well, then they would have to travel to an event the next week and hope that they played well in that qualifier, and so on and so forth, right? So this International Pathway Series has been, huge from an accessibility standpoint. We've partnered with some great people, the likes of, Tommy Fleetwood over in Europe and UAE kind of area. CT Pan has been kind of a long-term partner, helping out in the Taiwan area. Nico Acharba, he's in Colombia, so another PGA Tour player that's really helping support kind of what we're doing from that standpoint. So if we find the right people and it makes sense, that's something else that we're trying to do is really grow kind of that international presence, that'll help with the accessibility conversation long term.
That's great. And I know you also mentioned earlier the Liberty National ACE grant for maybe there are kids there are definitely kids out there that have the talent at the national level, but maybe don't have the financial means. Could you talk a little bit about the opportunities with the Liberty National ACE grant and what it is?
Yeah.
Go
the
ahead.
Liberty National ACE Grant program is fantastic. It was started back in 2003, really as a way to help with the First Tee program that was kind of just being established, and help those kids that, once again, didn't necessarily, have access to golf courses, to golf clubs. Once the First Tee program helped them with that, they were looking for competitive opportunities to play. But there was no financial incentive program or reimbursement program to help those kids get into and be able to play AJGA events or State Golf Association events or USGA events. And so since 2003, that program has helped with that. And, a lot of cool stories. I think two notable ones, Lanto Griffin, he's a PGA Tour player, grew up out in California, moved to Blacksburg, Virginia when he was 13. His dad passed away, and at the time, they didn't have the financial means for him to be able to travel and play. Blacksburg Country Club actually gave him kind of an honorary membership to be able to practice and play. He was playing in a 9-hole municipal golf course. And that was when the ACE grant program stepped up and really helped him travel and play AJGA events. And so he actually gave me a call back in 2021 during COVID and was like, hey, he had just won the Houston Open about a year prior out of the PGA Tour. And he was like, hey, the ACE grant program meant so much to me as a kid. Like, what can I do to help? And we got talking, and one thing led to another. And we've actually had the Lanto Griffin Junior Championship at Blacksburg Country Club since 2021. So kind of full circle moment where, that ACE grant program really helped him as a kid, and he remembered it. His mom always comes out to the Junior M fundraising event and thanks the members, and is just so appreciative of kind of what it did for him and the family. And, he sent me a photo the other day. His daughter Navy was just born, which is super cool. So him and Maya are super excited to be first-time parents. So yeah, that's great. Doug Gim was part of the program, and Rose Zhang even, out on the LPGA tour. So kind of to see, her progression, she was, one of our top players, and that helped her, be able to travel across the country to really get to that level where she was recognized by Stanford. And, when she actually went out onto the LPGA tour, her first start was at the Mizuho Americas Open, which is a co-sanctioned LPGA AJGA event. That was her first pro start, and she actually ended up winning it. So it was once again, super cool. And it was at Liberty National, which the ACE grant program is named after. So yeah, just unbelievable what it's doing, and really helping kind of the next generation.
I got the chills from those stories. It just, shows how important the work you guys do is, and sometimes it just takes an opportunity. And so as we close up here, what's one lesson that you guys have learned being in the position that you're in today?
Hannah, I'll let you kick it off.
I think probably just don't be afraid to ask the question, take the next step. And that's more terms, I guess, in terms of career wise, from being home in Tyler, Texas in COVID to moving out to Georgia for training to then being on the road for 16 weeks, having no idea who you were going to get to meet on that internship, or really, I also did not grow up playing golf. So not really knowing what that golf internship would look like, and just hoping I liked it. And then in terms of my current position, just never being afraid, we talked with even the CVBs and us going to the golf courses, just never being afraid to get no for an answer, because at least it is an answer, and you're not just kind of sitting waiting around for that next step and figuring out what you're trying to do.
It's going to be hard to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Geez, Hannah. No, I think on my side, the importance of kind of being resilient throughout the years. I think COVID really taught me that, right? We had our schedule completely in place. We were ready to host, I think it was about 100 events that year. And, COVID kind of blew that up for a couple months. And a lot of courses came to us and were like, hey, I know we signed this contract. I know we agreed to host, but our membership, doesn't want outside guests inside the clubhouse or at our club. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to host, kind of thing. And so we really had to go back to the drawing board, work really hard to get, our events back to where they needed to be during that year. And so I think, that's really what this place has taught me, that, anything's possible if you kind of, put your mind to it and, are resilient and kind of stay the path. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting time, and but learned a bunch, and was super fun at the AJGA. I mean, we were essentially out of commission for about 3 months during that time, which I know is actually probably a lot less of time than most people. But with us being an outdoor sport, we were able to get through that. But it took a lot of effort to get our events back off the ground during that.
Yeah, try not to think about that time, but
Yeah.
it does looking
Right.
back just the importance of that resilience. And so what are you guys most looking forward to with the AJGA this year? It could be an
I
event, it
think,
could be
yeah,
anything going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess really on my side to end the year, we have our senior showcase event that happens out in Las Vegas, Nevada, Henderson, Nevada area. Once again, it's we have 3 events that go on at the same time, and it's the only event on our schedule that is reserved for uncommitted high school seniors, and it's the same time as the NCAA College Coaches Convention, and so all the college coaches will come over to those 3 different courses to recruit. And Hannah and I have both been lucky enough to be a part of that event and running it over the years. And the storylines that come from that are just, incredible. One year I ran it, we had a playoff in the boys division. We had Columbia and Oklahoma Christian coaches that were out there following, the final groups. And after those last putts were sank, both kids were offered a college golf scholarship. So that was, something that was super cool for me. And I always loved that event to kind of end the year on our side.
I think, unfortunately, I probably agree because last year, a junior who I actually had the opportunity to get to know pretty well through an event in Oklahoma City, she ended up winning the girls event. And I actually just discovered recently that she was actually an ACE grant player. So she was an ACE grant recipient. She won the girls event, got a scholarship to Arkansas. She's a freshman there right now. And she actually just helped Arkansas win one of their match play events back in Oklahoma City, basically where she grew up. So it's just really neat. I think that event basically epitomizes our mission and what we do at the AJGA. So it's really kind of a fun full circle moment for us. And it's all full-time staff. There's about 35 staff members that go out to Las Vegas and spend like 8 days there, which is a really long time in Vegas. But whenever the week ends like that, it's all worth it to be out there in the desert for that many days. So I think I would have to agree it's the senior showcase events for sure.
Awesome. Hannah and Patrick, it's been such a pleasure having you guys. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. If anyone wanted to get in touch with you guys, whether that be destinations, event organizers, or people just wanting to connect, where's the best place to reach you outside of the PlayZ platform?
Yeah, no, Pete Cansfield at ajga.org, or you can reach me on my cell phone. I would say is the best place. Always happy to have the conversation, and look forward to chatting to anybody that is interested in hosting. And also just want to thank you, Kerri. Play Easy has been a fantastic platform for the AJGA. Really helps us, reach different destinations, and it's a big lift. So really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing and connecting us with different places that otherwise, we probably wouldn't even necessarily know about. So thank you.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Kerri. I would say email for me as well. It's hcollins@ajga.org. But this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time and for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.